Hello everybody, this is Catholic Dad, episode number 433, What Makes Men Evil? I'm reading the Gulag Archipelago again, and I've been doing some meditating upon what makes men evil. And within chapter 4, the blue caps of the Gulag Archipelago, Solzhenitsyn talks about the line of good and evil that run through every man's heart. Okay, when you live in a civilized society, one with culture, that you rarely ever see ounces or little specks of evil. But when you do, they're punished by law. And everybody agrees on what the rules of the road are and how you're supposed to treat your fellow man. But when culture breaks down and you descend into tyranny, those evil things that occur become normal, okay? And they become normalized, and certain people will be the great perpetrator of the evil, and most people will tolerate it, which makes you wonder, what makes men evil like that? And Solzhenitsyn was actually talking about one of his good buddies that he went to war with the Germans with when he was a Russian soldier. And he was always a salt of the earth good man. He knew it. And then when he got thrown off in the Gulag, he wanted to look him up when he got out of the Gulag 10 years later. And eventually he found out that his good buddy, a good man, became one of the interrogators for the Soviet Union. And just to put into perspective how evil these interrogators were, the interrogators were they would throw you in a 2x2 cold cell, like freezing cold, naked, and then they'd say, confess to your crimes, and you're like, no, I don't confess to I didn't do that. That's not a crime. They'd throw you in these cells and they'd freeze you out for 24 hours and standing. You weren't allowed to sit or sleep, and you couldn't sit or sleep because it's a 2x2 like stone cell. They'd take you out and they'd bring you back for interrogation. They say, here, sign here. You confess to your crimes. You say, no, I don't. So then they'd stick hot pokers up your rectum, hot wires through your testicles. The guards would step on your genitalia with like jack boots. They would beat you, and they would do some awful things to you, and then when you didn't confess, they'd throw you right back in the cell. And usually it was 2 or 3 times that in the cell that you would confess your crime, and then you'd be sent off to the Gulag for either death or or hard labor or something like that. And these interrogators, to show you how purely evil they were, they had like power went to their heads. They were untouchable by anybody except for probably Stalin. And what they would do is they would have somebody go to your spouse, right? And you couldn't communicate with your spouse and tell her, if you fornicate with this man here, you will save your husband's life. And so she would be under duress and say, okay, I'll save my husband's life. And then they would make him watch her fornicating through a room quietly, just to do mental anguish on this man like that, or they would take a pistol and put it in his head and said, you're about to die, and they'd click and it was empty. And then they would say, okay, now go to your cell and think about your sins, and when you come back, we'll do this again, right? And so they'd bring you right to the point of death and pull the trigger, or they'd make your spouse, make you watch your spouse having an affair on you, essentially, and not tell you why it was happening. And so these people were genuinely evil. Now, here's the deal. Things like that in Soviet Russia pre-Bolshevik Revolution were abnormal. Like, you couldn't get away with it because the justice system would take care of it. Much like America today, you can't get away with that kind of stuff. But the people that did that existed in old Russia, right? Which means the people that would do that to you today exist in the United States of America. And now start thinking about that the line of good and evil runs through every man's heart. And are you the person that has the capacity to do that to your fellow countrymen, yes or no? And I've been thinking about this for a little while now. Solzhenitsyn said in the book that, in storybooks and movies and plays that the the evil one is always evil. Like, he acts evil, he knows he's evil, and he pursues evil. But the real world, it never works that way. The people that pursue evil, they do it sub speciem bonum, like under the species of good. They're always well-intended. Like, even Hitler was well-intended. He thought he was doing something good for his country. Even Stalin thought he was doing good. Like, humans don't act unless they think they're doing good. So it means that these people that will descend into destroying their own countrymen's liberties and freedoms and doing horrible things to them mentally, believe they're acting in the good. So, and you got to wonder, how the heck can somebody think that? Well, so I figured it out. It's the transition from Christ-fearing Christian, right? Somebody who fears God, right? To an ideologue or a false religion, or somebody that believes we can attain some kind of perfection status on planet Earth and we don't need God anymore. And so, so who are the people that are willing to do this to you? And I have a little litmus test for you, something that I kind of been thinking about for a little bit. But who are the people around you which would coerce you to doing something against your own free will? I think those are the people that are subject to the capacity to become the tyrants amongst you, right? Because you're sitting there as a typical citizen, and all around you are people that are apparently very good, much like Solzhenitsyn's friend. But under the right circumstances, with the right authority over their heads, they would be willing to do evil to you to the point of like sticking you in a cold prison cell and torturing you with hot pokers. And these are your people that sometimes you call friend. And so our job as Christians, by the way, as tyranny is descending upon us, because I don't think I know a single person that doesn't realize this right now, that America is kind of on the way down right now, and that tyranny is on the way up right now. But we can reverse the trends, and you reverse the trends by actually analyzing your own heart and not compromising your own moral integrity. Because if you set a line in the sand that I will never do this to another person, then you won't. If you set the line in the sand that I will never be forced to do something like, say, take a vaccine or something like that, then you won't. But if you kind of make these wishy-washy lines in your life, like, oh, I'll never wear a mask, and then you do. Oh, I'll never take a vaccine. Oh, then you do. Oh, I'll never torture another man, and then under the right circumstances of torture yourself, you become the torturer, then you do. Like, if you keep moving the goalposts and you don't become principled in your life in terms of your own moral conscience, you are the one that will become the great tyrant of society, the same one that will put a bullet in the back of your best friend. And I'm not making myself, Catholic Dad, immune to this, by the way. This is something I've been struggling with pretty much my entire adult life, trying to realize what intrinsic evil lies within my own heart. And this is what a deep prayer life is about. This is what going before the Eucharist is about. And this is what confession is about, is that you're constantly trying to analyze your own heart, finding out where that line of good and evil is, and then trying to take the little evil pieces out and maximize the good within your heart. And then you want to retrain your heart so that when the evil starts creeping in under whatever circumstance it is, you just push it out and you say, no, not on my watch. And you become the guardian of your own salvation. You become the guardian of your own soul. And so, and that makes a more civil society. And by the way, you will be persecuted for having principle like that. Jesus promised it would happen. But blessed are they who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So I'm going to encourage everybody out there, by the way, that, and this is a challenge for you, is as this tyranny comes along and you think you're immune to being the tyrant, think again, because everybody has a line of good and evil in their heart, and everybody has the capacity to tyrannize their fellow countrymen. But I want you to go to adoration with this in mind in your own heart, is sit before the Blessed Sacrament, and then picture yourself walk into the altar of the Lord. Just watch yourself come in, and you're watching yourself and lay prostrate before the altar. Imagine yourself a saint. Imagine yourself as somebody who completely submits to the authority of the Lord. And then think about how you're different than them, that person who's laying prostrate before the altar of the Lord in front of you. Because you know how you deviate from that person. You know the ways of your life that you're not saintly. And so your goal, by the way, is to lay prostrate in front of the Lord with complete submission to the Lord's will and do what's absolutely right and never compromise your principles or your moral conscience. And that's what makes you a martyr, my dear friends. That's exactly that's the way of the cross. You pick up the intense pain and suffering of the world and you carry it yourself to the point of your own death, and you never impose it upon other people. And just think about that. And by the way, if you were walking down the street and you saw yourself, the saint, coming towards you, and you saw what kind of person that was, you'd probably fall to your knees in admiration. And so, which is this is the great thing to think about. We all have that line of good and evil in our heart, but we all have the capacity to be perfect in the eyes of God with the right mentality, correction, and will. Will is what it is. And so go to the Lord, go to the Blessed Sacrament, and tell all your friends about this little challenge, and try to get, go to the Adoration Chapel and try to picture yourself prostrate in front of the Lord, and then you become that person, because realizing in the very near future you have a choice. Either you're going to be lying prostrate in front of the Lord, or you're going to be the tyrant Those are the two people that exist in tyrannies, people, and you do not want to be the tyrant. Anyway, this is Catholic Dad making you think about it. Please like or subscribe, get the Mass, pray the daily rosary, and yeah, be a good person. God bless you all.